Someone recently posted a comment to the YouTube videos asking what software I use to create these, and I thought I would just share my entire setup with you, and as well as some best practices that I think may be of value. So for starters, let's start with the hardware. I think doing good voiceovers is important, so I bought a microphone, a Blue Yeti, and originally I just had it propped in front of me, in between me and the keyboard, sitting on a pot holder. And there was still a lot of noise. It was difficult to work around. And so I just bit the bullet and I invested in a shock mount and a boom arm and a pop filter. And so, for a couple $100 you can get a pretty good setup here with a decent mic, a nice boom arm to keep the microphone out of your way so it's suspended overhead, and the shock mount gets rid of a lot of the contact noise. So highly recommend investing a couple $100 in this. As far as the software, I use Pinnacle Studio Pro Ultimate. I've been at Pinnacle Studio for years, kind of as an amateur. 21 is a really nice version. They've done a great job, and it does the live screen capturing software as well as the editing. For the MAD markups and on-screen annotation, I use Ink2Go. I did some research and checked out a variety of products, and this is the one that I thought did the best job. So it is live. It doesn't take a screenshot and mark it up. It basically puts a layer or something over the screen where you can edit it live. Gives you a pen, highlighter, and arrow, as well as text. And then if I do need to do audio cleanup, the PreSonus Studio One software came with the microphone. I rarely use it just because it adds an extra step. I'm trying to be respectful of my audience. I want to give you guys a pretty good quality product, but I also don't feel compelled to, make my voice sound richer or get rid of every last bit of background noise. I'm trying to crank these out with as little impact on my life as possible and trying to give it to you, more readily. And so I'm sure you're more interested in more frequent video updates with perhaps slightly lower production values as long as the technical content is there. So that's why I don't have glitzy opening titles or background music. These are functional videos designed to communicate information. So I hope I've read my audience correctly. I know it's what I would want if I were consuming them. So anyway, that's the software and hardware I use. Let me give you an example of how I do a few things and narrate some of the best practices I've come across at this point in time. So let's talk about Ink2Go. So this is running up here at the top, and it does let you save screenshots and stuff. I did some experimentation, and I found that I thought the blue colors seemed to work pretty well against the Magic Draw palette, as well as the same thing with the highlighter. I found that the blue didn't distort things. Some of the other colors, you would think red or orange, it seemed to actually make visibility worse. And so I've just standardized on the blue color because it seems to work fairly well. So there's some hotkeys here to delete things. If you hit A for arrow, you can pop an arrow down to show things of interest. So I'm quite taken with Ink2Go. And the nice thing is once you minimize it, it disappears, so it's unobtrusive, and then you can just go ahead and do your stuff. And so it's a case of it doesn't really get in the way of what I'm doing, but then on demand I can reactivate it at will and then move on with things. So I'm quite taken with Ink2Go as a mechanism for highlighting my screen. I think it was like $20 or so. So it's not terribly expensive, but I think it really adds a richness to the experience. I can very easily do things here. I can trigger it at will, and I've gotten pretty proficient using the hotkeys, so I think it works fairly well. So anyway, just something to think about. Ink2Go, I think, is a great software, and it doesn't cost a lot, and it really adds a lot of value to what I'm doing. So I'm going to show you how I use Pinnacle Studio Pro to zoom in on my videos here to emphasize, the software aspect that I'm trying to illustrate. And so one thing I will say, if you're in a hurry and don't have video software and are doing a live demo or something, you can use the built-in Windows Accessibility Magnifier, like Windows Plus. We'll pop it up, and there's a couple different modes for it. The problem I ran into is that when I would double-click on something on screen, the video capture software would record the mouse being offset from what I was actually clicking. And the other problem is it tends to have jaggies. It doesn't look nearly as good. So I tend to stick with just doing it in post-processing. And so the easiest way to do that is to go to the editor in Pinnacle Studio, which is the advanced editor. I think it does a pretty good job. And here we have a case where we are looking at the software here as it plays through. I can decide that I want to be zoomed in over here by this point. And so I found that using the keyframes, this basically is setting frames where we want the software to be at a certain zoom level and that sort of thing. So I will go ahead and I'm going to set a keyframe here, and I also want to zoom in horizontally, and I'll set the vertical one as well. And I found 2 seconds is a good length of time, so I will then come here and back up 2 seconds and hit enter, and then I'll pop in another set of keyframes. So that way these are going to be set at this position. Then I jump to the keyframe I want, and let's say we want to zoom in to 200%, and then I can just adjust my horizontal position here. That's a little bit too much. And then we can do that. So now we've zoomed in a bit and we're over where we want to see it. Now I can just let it roll. Okay, so now I've decided that that's enough of that, and I'm going to be zooming over here to the spec window. And so I'm going to go ahead and set another keyframe here. And notice the keyframes pick up the original settings that we had. So they basically make a copy, which is really convenient. Then I can come back here to go to -2 seconds. So we'll go back to 6 seconds, and I'll set up another set of keyframes. Then I'll jump to the other one, and I'll basically reset everything. And now, as we play this, we'll go from zoomed in, and it'll track nicely to zoom backed out. Now let's say I want to zoom in here to the spec window being open. So now I would set the keyframes here again. Back up 2 seconds. Drop another set to anchor it at the previous zoom and horizontal position levels. And then we'll get to here. And I think I've found that like 160 works well for the spec window. And there we go. And so then it'll go ahead and be zoomed in, show what I want to see. So at this point, again, I'd want this to be 100%. So I'll set the keyframes down, back up 2 seconds, drop another set, and then come here and reset it. And so now I'll go ahead and go full screen with this, and you'll be able to see the entire, took me a couple seconds to do this, but now we zoom in. And again, this looks lousy because it's the high-speed preview. This isn't what it would look like if I actually rendered it. But this gives you the ability to zoom in on what's relevant and important. And I think it makes it a much better demonstration video. Again, as I said, when I do these, I'm trying to get good content. As I record, I've learned how to put pauses in, so it gives me more flexibility when I edit. And the important thing to remember is, again, I'm not trying to eliminate every single verbal tick or work from a script. I'm ad-libbing these and doing my best, but the intent is to give you guys a quality video without spending too much time on my own. So that's how I do it. It's all just Pinnacle Studio, ink to go, and some reasonably decent hardware that didn't cost an arm and a leg. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.